大家好，欢迎来到国际培训大咖五十谈，我是顾立民。今天呢，我用中文开场啊，那么我们马上呢就用英文呢跟国际的大咖对话。今天我们来的做客的这位嘉宾呢，非常的特殊，因为他特殊呢，首先他是我们的好朋友啊，是我们大家的好朋友，也是我的个人的这个好朋友。那么很长的时间以来呢，他呢都是我的这个偶像之一。他在美国非常的著名，他的名字呢叫伊莱恩·毕科女士。那么我现在先用中文呢来介绍她一下。毕科女士呢，已经在这个行业有40年的这个从业经验了。那么她呢可以说是著作等身，她在 ATD 等等这些个国际上非常著名的这个国际的这个学习发展行业里边呢，做过很多很多的职位，也做过很多很多的贡献，也得到了全球的学习与发展从业者的这个认可和尊敬。那么我呢给大家看一些个书，这些个书呢都是大部头，像这个书呢是 AICD 应该是2015年的handbook 这都是 Elaine Biech 他的这个主编的这些书。然后呢，我们把它翻译成了中文。大家看到 AICD 和 ATD 是不一样的了，因为在15年的话 ，AICD 变成了 ATD。那么这是其中的一本还有很多的这个大部头。那么这本书呢是 AICD handbook， 这个书呢是2010年前后，然后呢我们在2011年呢把它翻译成了中文上面那本书呢是跟这个叫电子工业出版社，这本书呢是跟培训杂志，在2011年所以呢，大家看这都是大部头100来万字左右。所以两本书呢，还有其他的一些书，比如说Leadership Handbook 这些书全都是字典级的这些书 ，they're all dictionary, they're not books 所以呢，还有呢，像比较普及型的书这个叫做 Training for Dummies and Leadership 书，还有 Ultimate Train the Trainer 等等，还有很多的书。那么10 Steps to Successful Training 等等等等。那么这些个只是冰山一角。那么所以呢，我给大家看这些书呢，只是说我自己有的这些个collection。那么我经常呢会去汲取一些个营养。那么今天呢，我们也非常的高兴呢，把 Elaine 毕科本人来请到做客我们国际培训大咖50谈。那么我们下面呢，我就来跟他这个连线，我们打招呼，我们用英语来跟他来进行这个对话了。Hi Elaine, how are you?
Well, hi George, I'm great. How are you doing? You look great.
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thank you for all these books and thank you for all you do for all the past few decades for all of us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. It's been a joy. I love what I do. I'm so fortunate to be one of those lucky people in the world who really loves their job. So I'm very blessed.
To start the conversation, and I'm so glad, so thankful that you'll be able to attend our Training Master series, and also thank you for attending the summit. You were the first one to appear on the summit, during the online summit.
What an honor. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So where did you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Where did you grow up? Where is your hometown? What's your major in college? Something about you.
Oh gosh, I grew up in Wisconsin, one of those states that are in the very northern part, real close to Canada. So it was cold and snowy all the time. I majored in college. I majored in business and education consulting, which was a degree that I created myself, because there wasn't a degree for what I wanted to do. I started out as an actuarial scientist because I was a math geek. I just knew lots about math and won lots of math contests. And so when I went back to school as an adult, I quit school and I went back to school, and I had already discovered training and consulting, and I just knew that's what I wanted to do. So University of Wisconsin allowed me as an adult to make up my own degree, and it's a combination of psychology and business and communication and all those things that we're supposed to be able to do really well.
Well, thank you, Elaine, for letting us know. We really regarded you as one of the gurus in this field, and to know a little bit personally of you, that really kind of a human touch. And of course, we know that you have been in China a couple of times to deliver leadership workshop. You have been working with like Sinopec and China Telecom, those big giant clients there in China, and you have been doing that to China many times. So tell us your definition, because leadership has been a very popular topic here in China for over 20 years, and leadership is still a very popular topic. So can you, since you have done this a lot, but can you tell us what's your definition of leadership, and what does this, right now there are a lot of changes, and in the pandemic and all the world economic changes. So what do all these changes mean for leaders?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I think that leadership has really two parts. It's first of all the ability to influence others in order to achieve the effectiveness for the organization, but then it's also making sure that the employees as well as the customers are both engaged as well as have satisfaction in the results of the organization. So there's a quote by Joel Barker that I like, and it's a leader is a person you would follow to a place you wouldn't go alone. And I just think that that's an important part of leadership that we oftentimes forget. It's the leader's job to inspire and motivate. Yes, the leader has to get the job done for the organization, but they have to be inspirational and motivate people too. You asked me about what the changes mean for leaders. Well, I think the leaders of tomorrow are going to have some very different skills. They're going to have to be very focused on the mission critical roles, but they also need to think about creating value through an ecosystem. I know that during the introduction, Edward and I were talking, and he mentioned the ecosystem quite a bit. And what that means for the leader is that the leader has to pay attention to their own organization, both globally as well as locally. And it's interesting to note that so much of what an organization used to do is now being handed off to some smaller companies. And so it's making those hard decisions. And what's on top of it, those decisions are going to have to be very fast. So they have to be agile to be able to flip around. I think many of our leaders feel like they have to be perfect, and the decisions that they're going to have to be making in these days, they're going to have to get used to feeling okay with 80% is good enough, and then move on. And if something has to change, they'll have to pivot quickly and do that. So there's a lot of things for a leader to be thinking about right now. Analytics, they're going to have to really understand the analytics of the organization so that they can affect their efficiency. And then just the workforce. I mean, the workforce is changing itself. Well, it's going to become much more freelance, much more contractors, consultants, gig workers. So, gosh, it's going to be a very hard job for leaders, and we in the L&D community have to do what we can do to help them. So,
you have been teaching a lot of leadership workshops in the United States, and then you taught a lot of sessions here in China as well. Have you found any differences in the leadership or definition or the application part of leadership in both countries? Is there any difference at all, or there are differences?
Well, the one difference that I do see is that, and I don't know if it's happening around the world, but at least in the United States, shareholders are kind of forcing leaders to make decisions based on more short-term kinds of things. So they're not allowing for that long-term part. Now, what I really love about China is that you have such a long history, and you are willing to wait for the very best, and you have done that. And our leaders used to be looking at those long-term goals, and that was what was more important. but they're starting to be more short-term focused. And I'm not so sure that's good for business, but then again, who knows? You know, nobody knows what the future is going to bring. So that's maybe the one difference that I see, at least in the United States, that's happening right now. And again, I just admire China for being willing to wait until the right time and, you know, depend on your history and all that you have behind you. That's great.
Leadership, I've studied some, I attended some of the leadership workshops and something like that. And what I found that it's not only leaders, I mean, you have a ranking or a hierarchy, the top executive, they have leadership, but do you think individuals in an organization, they also have like their own leadership, like individual leadership or something like that? Is there something like that too?
Oh, yes. Yes. I don't think of leaders necessarily as just being those people at the very top of the organization. Of course, they're going to have to make the decisions, the final decisions for the organization, but everyone in the organization has to be a leader. You have to bring from inside of you to inspire everyone. So even if you don't have people reporting to you, you have to act like a leader. You have to think like a leader. And from an L&D perspective, we have to help all of the people in the organization to recognize that they do have a leadership role. I know the pandemic that's happening right now is helping people to see how important their role is. I know I saw an interview by someone who is making the masks that people have to wear. And he said in the past, he felt like he was just making masks. It wasn't that big of a deal. And he was in a factory, he was a factory worker. But now he realizes that his job is saving lives. And that's what's important. And I think that we as L&D professionals can help all of our people recognize that they're doing something for the mission of the organization. They're not just doing some small job that they come to work and just do and go home. It's much more important than that. But it's our responsibility to help them see that. I think a lot of people don't like their work because they don't see the bigger picture and what value they bring to society, not just to their company.
So, you just explained that the answer is yes. Actually, what you just explained is that individual leadership does exist and is more like a self-motivation or self-empowerment, and then leading your own way, and then be in alignment with the organization's goals, and then putting your efforts together toward the same goals, something like that. If
exactly.
a short version. The reason I'm asking is that in Chinese organizations, I mean, basically in companies, in Chinese companies, there are millions of them. And leadership workshop is so popular and so important. And then, their training coordinator, they go out and buy, leadership workshop and sessions, and they bring in the instructors and they conduct the workshop. And then it's very, it's a hot topic. It's everybody likes it, but later on, a week later, everybody forgets about it. So
Yep.
Does that happen in America? Does it happen in any other countries? Because you have been traveling all around the world.
Unfortunately, it does. Unfortunately, it really does. People come to the workshops and they get excited. Now, one of the things that I've been really working hard at for the last, I don't know, maybe 5 or maybe longer than that years, is to help people who come to a training to understand that they have to go back to their organizations. And if their supervisor hasn't led the way, they need to lead the way for the discussions that have to take place. So, for example, I think that before anyone comes to any kind of a workshop, they should sit down with their supervisors or leaders or whomever is sending them, and talk about, why am I going? What's my goal? What am I supposed to bring back to the organization? And then when they go back, they need to sit down and have that same discussion. Here's what I learned. How can we implement it? How can I share this with my colleagues? That all of those, training isn't an event. It's a long-term kind of thing. And with leadership, it is even more so important. And so that's where I see it. Unfortunately, it has happened. I think that's one of the reasons, one of the things that we as L&D have to step up with. You know, I've been talking about three things, big changes over the last 5 years that are happening in our profession. And one of them is that managers have to coach and develop their people. It's not L&D's responsibility, but L&D has to help managers understand that that's their role, and they have to coach them to be good coaches. And if that happens, then there'll be a lot more learning that occurs, takes place, and is really implemented in the organization. So that's just one of the three things. The other two things are, first of all, that managers or that leaders have to be responsible for their own learning, all of us. And when I say leaders, I mean every one of us. We have to be responsible for our own learning. And then we as L&D have to partner with senior leadership. I've been using a term that I've called trusted advisors over and over and over, trying to deepen that understanding of how it's important. And now with the pandemic, I think it's even more important. Our leaders don't have time to hardly sneeze. They have to be thinking all the time. And so we as L&D have to step in and help them understand what it is that they need to know.
In China, thank you. That's very very good point of view. In China right now, as you know, that corporate universities and training centers are very popular. And among within each university, there are always a leadership a program or a leadership department or something like that. And then not amazingly, but there is also another department called management training department. So management training, leadership training, and then a skill training and technical training, they all kind of line up. So they chunk it out like that, and they use training. They use the leadership. So they separate them out. So and this question is actually from one of our viewers. I mean, I pre-collected. I told them I'm going to talk to Elaine. So what kind of question are you going to ask? So they sent me a bunch of questions, and this is one of them. I think it's a good one. I'm going to ask you about it. So the difference between management training and leadership training. Tell us your definition of that.
Yeah, I'm going to paraphrase one of our great leaders who said that managers do things right and leaders do the right things. So that's right. I was going to question you, test you. Yes, indeed. That's exactly right. So I think managers pay more attention to making sure all of the things are in the right places at the right time to get the job done efficiently and effectively. On the other hand, leaders have to inspire people to pick up the pieces and do the work and do it with energy and joy and getting the job done. I think that's the big difference. I think leaders have to be good managers too, but their most important part is to inspire other employees and inspire the managers that have to get those things in the right places at the right time. So I think that's what it is. Yeah.
That's excellent. I'm so glad I passed the test.
You always pass the test, George. And by the way, George, we're talking about learning right now. I think this your effort that you're doing right now for everybody is just fabulous. We all have to keep learning, and this is a wonderful, wonderful experience for everyone. So, thank you for doing this. It's great.
And thank you for being so supportive. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So do the right things and do things right. That's the difference between leaders and managers. I got that. And so that's a very good answer to all of our 20 million L&D professionals in China. That's a very good answer. Thank you. The other question I'll ask you is that in China right now, just one last question to hit on leadership. And there are so many universities. They have MBA programs. MBA programs has become popular in China like 20 years ago, around the millennials. Around millennium in year 2000, Y2K, and then in China, all the higher end, the big name universities start to have MBAs, and they all partnered with U.S. or European or Australian big universities on delivering MBA programs. Tell us, in America or in the Western world, the developing countries, is leadership part of the MBA program? And if how are they taught? And your point of view after World War II, during the past few decades, I mean, you have been there. I mean, been in the field very long. And
Right.
tell us, does the leadership training take a very important role for the growth of the U.S. economy?
Yes, leadership is very important for the U.S. economy. I think all universities teach it. You asked if it was in a part of an MBA program. It is. I think it's taking on more of an emphasis since the year 2000, because I think before that point there was maybe a little more emphasis on management than there was on leadership. But leadership is definitely coming around in its own. I think that you mentioned right after World War II, at that point, the United States was in a very good position, and it was able to ensure that productivity was going strong, and it was able to use Duran and Deming as making sure that they didn't have rework and that things were working well. But all of those things are still getting the job done. But really, it still required that inspiration. And, I think up until maybe the last 10 years, people thought of inspiration as sort of that soft skill. It really isn't a soft skill. It is a skill that every organization has to have. So you have to be able to inspire your people. That's all. I feel like I'm beating this to death right now. And I don't mean to do that, but that's really the important element that I think a leader, no matter what your position is in your organization, you have to inspire everybody else. Even if you don't have anyone reporting to you, you can inspire your colleagues to do a better job. And that's what I think is really wonderful. Everybody that's listening here, I'm guessing, can step back and think about one person in their organization that inspires them to be a better person, to do a better job. And if you can use them as, I will use the word mentor, but it doesn't have to be in that formal sense. You can just observe what is it that they do that make you feel good. I got an email this morning, as a matter of fact, from someone who is a senior vice president in a very large technical company. And I had sent him a note and just said, thank you for all the things that you do. And he wrote back to me and said, you're the inspiration for what I do. So it's wonderful. It's that give and take. We have to treat each other as people. And that's how inspiration happens.
Right. It is bilateral. It's come and goes. I mean, a bilateral way. And we learn from each other. Like right now, we're learning from you. And the other day, Roger Kaufman was on my show last time. And then he said, we're learning from each other. I think that's absolutely right. Yeah. Thank you. I know that leadership. If we linger on leadership topic, we can go like hours, because there are so many that you want to talk, and there are so many that we want to ask. But this interview will only last for 1 hour, so I want to switch to some other questions. The other question is on the L&D topic, because right now, especially after year 2000, there's world political or economic changes and technological advances. The internet in year 2000, everybody's very not like today where we're using it freely. I mean, this is like you're next to me. It's so clear. So technological advances, cultural changes, and everything, and then Web 2.0. And then, and personal devices, and the iPhone, and the smartphone, and make everything possible. So many changes, and now we're going to Mars. So anyway, so many changes, societal, economic. What does that mean for learning and development professionals? What's your advice for them to prepare for these changes?
Okay, so you know, you always build a whole lot into your questions, George. So there's a lot that I can unpack there. I think I already mentioned that the three big focuses for L&D, and I'll just remind everyone, is the first one is that they have to partner with their senior leaders. Absolutely have to. It's a must. As a trusted advisor, you have to partner with them. The second thing is that you have to help learners understand that they have to be responsible for their own learning. L&D departments are changing dramatically here in the United States, and I think they are in China as well, in which you have to step up to it. And then the third thing is to help managers be coaches, because as learners have to learn, they need somebody to coach them, and that's the manager's job. They have to do that. So let's talk just a little bit about, we're all familiar with the KSAs. So that's knowledge, skills, and attitude for those people who don't know. The knowledge that we have to have is really getting deeper, more refined, and much more strategic. We have to have a clear understanding of analytics. What analytics do our companies need? Do our leaders need? I think that's important. I think we have to understand social intelligence. In other words, understanding other people and where they come from. We have to be aware of cybersecurity. That's a threat to all of our organizations. And other knowledge that we have to understand design thinking, how people learn, and something about growth mindset. I think that's a real critical piece that we have to know. Growth mindset really is just the belief that you can learn and you can do anything you want to do, but you have to believe in yourself, and that's important. As far as skills go, I think that there's, because of our expanded role, we need to be really knowledgeable about teams and collaboration. We have to understand and be able to do critical thinking, creative thinking, adaptive thinking. All three of those thinking skills are important. And then as far as our skills go, I think we have to pick up some consulting skills. We need to be able to build teams. We need to be able to embrace and help other people work through change management, and we have to be good coaches. So, I think that there's lots of jargon. Our organization, our profession always has a lot of jargon that's out there, but you have to cut through that jargon and think about what's really important here. And I think that's important. There's another thing that's happening, a phenomenon that I think is really interesting, and that is all those other elements at the job that were really specified for HR, human resources departments. Really, those jobs are now oozing into learning and development. So we are getting involved in hiring. We're getting involved in onboarding. We're getting involved in how to engage and retain employees. We're even getting involved in recruiting. And I believe, and all of that's in addition to helping our people learn. So, and I think we should be, because we have the kinds of communication skills that can help organizations do that. So I think that's really a critical element. There's so much to learn. And then as far as our attitude, I think we have to have a can-do attitude. We just have to step up to the plate and do what needs to be done. We need to think positively, and we need to be able to do that. So that's sort of a long answer, but we have a big job ahead of us.
Yes, we do. Thank you for the three big things, and that's very good direction to provide for the. I mean, that's a very good career direction, because there's so many young talents here, L&D professionals, and in China, our rough calculate, our best guesstimate in China, the L&D professionals number are around 20 million at least. Around 20 million.
Yeah. China's numbers always amaze me. Just amaze me. I love it.
The reason is because mom and pop shops or the corner store, they can't afford a training manager's position, but according to the official statistics, there are at least like 40 million companies in China. We cut them off half. We slice it half. And then each company must have at least one training or coordinator at least. I mean, maybe 20% of that position's role is training, and then, but it's still related to training. And then one company, but they're gigantic companies, and they have like thousands of trainers and training managers as well. Like the State Grid, like the Sinopac, those big, and some insurance companies. So just average out 20 million probably. The reason I'm asking is because they do need directions. And in China, they're not trained. They're at college. We're still trying to. There's no such a major to train them before they get onto the jobs. So after they get the job, they have to self-learning. So they need directions. They need guidance from you. And of course, just now you mentioned one word, the mentoring, the coaching. I think those are very important too. But mentoring and coaching is another important. But for our L&D profession, we do need guidances and mentorings from people like you. So thank you for that. And just continue to that subject. AICD used to be American Society for Training Development. Now our beloved ATD, Association for Talent Development. I always tell our L&D professionals in China saying, hey, they changed their AICD name from AICD to ATD. They down their geographical identity, which is American, and they down another name, which is one of the other ways to learn, to train, to develop talent, which is called training. So they dropped those two aspects, and now is Association for Talent Development. And it's been growing for, from 1943, ATD has been so strong. And you have been working with ATD for decades. And one of the latest achievement that we have read, is that the ATD's talent development body of knowledge, and which you have been spending like couple thousand hours on, and diligence. Diligence is really our motto. So tell us something about that, because we know something that in the past we had the competence model, and now it's the capability model. What's the change? Why is the change? What are the changes? And so why they're important?
Yeah. So you really hit on it. The reason that there's been a change is because our jobs have changed. We are no longer just trainers. We are not just to deliver information. We have to be a part of the fabric. We have to be woven right into our organization, and that's really important. So there was a new competency study that was done in 2018, and the results were that since a competency is much more about what it is that we have to be prepared to do today, they felt that what the research showed is that we as a profession need to be prepared for what's going to happen tomorrow. So the competencies have been changed to capabilities. Now, you might say, well, that's just wordsmithing. Those are just words that they did. But I think there's a bigger and more important element, and that is that it really focuses on what we're supposed to be doing as talent developers and not trainers. And it goes back to those three things that I mentioned before. We have to help our leaders, we have to help our managers, and we have to help everybody understand that we're all responsible for our own growth. I like to say, and then the body of knowledge that you mentioned, the talent developed body of knowledge, which is being called the TDBOK, is really important, because this is in order to be considered a real profession, you have to have a body of knowledge. And we've never had that before. And so I know it intimately, and that's because I have written all 1,000 pages of that. There are 2,500 different topics in it, 2,500 different topics. And they're all rolled up into 23 different capabilities. And those 23 different capabilities are sorted into 3 domains. And the 3 domains are really easy to remember, and they make so much sense. The first domain is that we need the skills to build our personal capabilities. And that includes just everything from communication and project management, lifelong learning, ethical behavior, so many things. The second domain is developing professional capabilities. So after we understand how good we need to be as a person, now what do we have to know as a professional talent developer? And so it includes, of course, the things you would expect to find in there, instructional design and delivery and evaluation, but also there's a large portion about technology and knowledge management, career and leadership development and coaching, and all of those things. So we've got personal, then we've got professional, and then the third one, which is the one that I'm the most excited about, is impacting organizational capability. And I'm excited about that because that's the place that I play in the most. That's where I work in the most. And that one has to do with business insight. Is the basic of it. We really have to understand how businesses operate and what they do, and especially ours and the industry that we work in. It also includes OD, organizational development, culture, performance improvement, analytics, talent management, what else is in there? Change management. Oh, and then there's an area for future readiness, helping us to understand how to be ready for the future. And so all of those topics are in the TD Bach, or the Talent Development Body of Knowledge. And, you know, it's an amazing piece of work. Yes, you said thousands of hours, over 2,500 hours. There were lots of late nights working. And by the way, that 2,500 hours was scrunched together in about 6 months. So it was like having 2 full-time jobs. I worked every Saturday, every Sunday, but it's done and it's great. And it's important to the L&D profession. So I'm grateful to have had the honor to do that for ATD and for all the people and for the 20 million talent development people in China too.
You know, thank you, Elaine. The TD Bach sounds like a must. Sounds like a winner. I mean, the winner that maybe they need to be translated, like these guys. Like these guys needs to be translated into Chinese as well, because these are, I call them the big breaks. They're dictionaries. These books are dictionaries, and then it's impossible to read them through in one sitting or 1 week. Oh, it's not worth it.
No, and you shouldn't. You should use it like a dictionary or an encyclopedia. You should be looking it up. But you know, George, I want to just remind you, with all those 20 million talent development experts that you have in China, I wrote a book especially for them, just for China. You're aware of that, right? The training is the answer for China, and it was immediately translated. It was not written for the United States or anybody else, and it was immediately translated into Chinese. But for all of those people, I think that because it was written specifically with them in mind, I think that that's the place to start. You know, yeah, that's it. That's the one, right? Yeah, and that. I'm trying to remember how that happened. China asked me to write that. So I don't know who in China, or, you know, when I say somebody in China, there's, you know, all your billions of people, but somebody asked me to write that. And if you're just new, I'm going to say, don't get the Bach. Don't get the body of knowledge. It's too much. Start with that little book. It will give you all the basics that you need to understand. So I think yeah.
Yeah, right. In that book, there are 11 chapters, and I had the honor to translate it, and those are very. That's the only book that I see are very, very systematic. But every chapter is at an entry level. It gives you a very. I mean, those 11 chapters give you the bird's eye view of the L&D profession. But everything you hit on it, but not digging deep because it's not allowed to, and then but it's an eye opener. It's an entry level, and as an entry knowledge, and everything will be well. That's a good read. I mean, that's a worth reading over a weekend or something like that. So
yeah.
you did design it you did write it for China, because I remember you asked me about the covers, and I said those are very typical for China.
Yep.
Only in China.
That is one of my favorite covers of all the covers, and I was sad that when it was translated into Chinese, it didn't pick up that same cover. But I love the red. I just love it all. So yep.
I know. I'll tell them when it's the next edition. I'll tell them. I'll keep this one.
All right.
Deal.
And if they change the cover, I will autograph 1,000 copies for them. So how's that?
I recorded this, so
no.
so I have the proof. I have your word already. So sounds like the TD Bach is really a very truly systematical. But compared to those earlier two handbooks, they're more kind of inclusive and widening the scope.
Yeah, it is more inclusive. What we did with those first handbooks was I chose the leaders in each of those areas and then asked them to write about their specialty. So oftentimes they aren't connected from one chapter to the next, whereas the Bach is completely different. In fact, if any of the listeners are thinking about studying to get a certification, the TD certification, then you will want the TD Bach, because the questions are perfectly aligned to the TD Bach. Now, it's not that you can certainly memorize the TD Bach, and it's not only just for studying for that, but it's just a good practical resource to have. Helps you along the way. Again, remember those three areas: personal, professional, and the organization.
Organizational,
so,
yes.
Yeah, it's just put together so well. And by the way, that wasn't all my idea. We had committees and people behind us that helped to do the design and how that would be laid out. So I just did the grunt work, the writing.
And you're the leader too.
Well, I give myself to the profession. It's a profession that's given me so much. So I continue to owe the profession for everything that I get to do.
Yes, the TD Bach is that I know that in the earlier version of it is developed by Phil Rothwell, right? The kind of shape, the competency model.
Oh, the puzzle part, is that, or the competence? Yeah, he's never designed that by himself. The organization always does research, and then they hand it over to him and his students, and they put a lot of those pieces together. So the design itself is always based on research. It's always based on getting, and it's not just U.S. research, it's worldwide research. I mean, I saw the comments that came in before the TD Bach. They came from everywhere in Europe, all over Asia, South America, Africa. So it's good. I didn't see anybody from Antarctica, but maybe it's too cold right down there.
And virus free.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe
so. Is the TD Bach the very first one in the ATD history? So such a big scope, so systemic, and everything's included, but so clearly divided into separated into different categories, like the individual, professional, and organizational, and then the 23 categories there.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. It was a big job, but George, I found out a long time ago that the one thing that I'm good at is organizing. I may not know a whole lot about everything, but I am really good at organizing everything else. So the job was made for me, 23 things. Okay, I can do that. Good. So it was fun. It was really fun. A lot of work, but fun.
I learned that from you one time a couple of years earlier. I remember you told me that you have cabinet drawers, and if you want to start to write a book, maybe half a year earlier, you start to gather material, maybe a cartoon or something. You cut it out, and then just throw it into that box, and then just started collecting on them. I mean,
that's right. You're a good learner, George. You're a good learner, and see, now you're teaching the thousands and thousands of people that are listening to this about how to start writing a book too. That's exactly the way I start every one of my books. Yep.
Right, right. That's something that I always wanted to learn because the way that you work, and you told me that you sleep very few hours, and then you cut off all the social activities, and then just concentrate. That focus, that dedication, that devotion is really admirable to all of
Thank you.
us.
Thank you. Yeah, I like that. I'm a focus. I can be focused really easily. Yep.
I clearly remember on May 15th that, and then hundreds of people online on our wished you happy birthday that day because that day was the online summit.
That's right. That's right. That's right. It was great.
And
Wonderful.
yes, 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 and hundreds of them so say, hey, say hello to Elaine, and because you're so welcome. And I told them that you work diligently on the TD Block, and that's really the first time ever in ADD's since 1943, 5,000 years of history, and then this is the first time. So we're ready, and maybe we got a lot of job to do over here to translate them. Maybe.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So you have how many books have you written so far?
I just finished my 86th book. I've published 85. Yeah, I know. People don't even believe me, and I've worked with 15 different publishers. So the most recent book is Skills for Career Success, and I am so excited about that. It's been written for all employees, and it goes back to this whole idea about we have to be responsible for our own development. So if that's the case, then how do I do that? What do I need to know? And so the book itself it covers 51 different critical skills for all employees to learn. And then it provides anywhere from 12 to 16 different ways that you can practice those on your own, or how you can go get somebody else, find a mentor, and what kind of questions you might ask. So, that's the core of the book, these 51 skills, and it provides you with ideas about how to gain those skills. It's going to be a big fat book too, another 500 to 600 pages, and it's not going to be the kind of book you read from cover to cover. You go in there and you figure out it's going to have a design for the strategies and the skills that you need to have to design your own career development, and then it help you figure out what those 51 skills are. And you'll be able to look at a list of 16 different activities. Some of the things you can do right now, just do it. Other things you can, you might need a couple of days or a couple of weeks to do. And then there's some other things that are much more long-term. Here's something that you want to think about doing. It's going to take you 5 months or 6 months to learn this, but it'll be much more in-depth. So can you tell I'm excited about this book, George? I am.
I have the next natural question is, do you have time to eat and sleep and go to a movie theater at all?
Yeah, of course I do. Of course I do. I'm a fast writer. The focus, you mentioned focus before, but I think that that's a skill that everyone could learn, because when you're focused, you can get 10 times the amount of work done than when you try to do 5 or 6 or 7 different things at the same time. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great lesson, because nowadays, the internet, now is the internet age, and everybody going online, teaching and learning and working online because of the pandemic. Everybody's forced online, and everybody trying to be smart. There's a word called multitasking. Yeah. Multitasking. The thing I want to ask is, there's so many books that you have written. What I've learned from you is that concentration, the big focus, is really a couple times faster and more productive than multitasking. Because when you multitasking, your attentions are diverted and go astray. So especially nowadays, so I think is you and I, our joint advice to all of our listeners, because right now they're working, they're listening to maybe they have one of our windows open, and they have 3 other windows open on their computer right now, and one of them is ours. And then so at the work, concentrate. So do concentrate, do focus, because you will get a lot more than you expected.
Absolutely.
And that's the advice from both Elaine and George. And thank you.
Hey, George, let's write a book about that, huh? What do you think?
Bingo.
All right.
Bingo. We can do that. Because you can mentor me, and I can follow, and I can tell. I can do a few chapters. And
okay.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Elaine, you have been writing so many books. It seems like we need an army of translators behind you over here on this side of the Pacific Pond to translate all of your books, because all of them are very valuable. So if you pick one or two books for us to work on immediately and translate them into China, and then maybe very useful to our viewers in China, which one would, among those? Oh, you have a long list. I know you have a long list.
Yeah.
But more, current, up to date, and anything.
Yep.
Or you can give me the answer later. But
no. The two books that I would definitely recommend that you translate immediately are the last. Let's see, it'd be the last two books that I wrote for ATD. One was called ATD's Foundations, and the other one was ATD's Guidebook. I don't have the books right in front of me, but maybe you can see these two pictures.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Developing knowledge, two books. Yeah.
They were published at the same time.
Action guide.
The
action guide
is the blue one, and the orange one is ATD's Foundations. Let me share with you that was meant to be one book. And when I got finished writing it, I turned in the manuscript, and they came back to me and said, "Are you aware that you wrote over 1,000 pages?" And I was on a real tight deadline. So I said, "No." And they said, "Well, we can't print a book of 1,000 pages." And they said, "Well," and they started telling me all the things that they wanted to cut out of it. And I said, "No, when I agreed to write this book for you, we had an agreement that it would include everything that TD professionals need to know." And so they were a little like, "Oh, well, what are we going to do about this?" And I said, "Well, why don't we turn it into two books?" And they immediately said, "Oh yeah, so we'll do like chapters 1 through 10, and then chapters 11 through 20. And I said, "No, we won't." Except I think there's 36 chapters in there. I said, "No, we won't. No, that's like an encyclopedia. I don't want that." So I had to go back and rewrite both of those books. But the first book, the orange one, talks more about the what and the why. It's more the philosophy and the understanding of why we do what we do. And then the blue book, the action guide, puts the action into it. So that's all of the activities and the kinds of things that you can do to make sure that it happens. So if you want to just pick something up and understand how I can do this in my own organization, that's the how. So the first one is the what and the why, and the blue one is the how. And they make a wonderful pair. So, I would definitely make sure that those two get changed, and also, by the way, a lot of the TD Bach is based on those two books. I was a little bit ahead of my time when I wrote those two books because we didn't have the competency study hadn't been completed yet. I was writing it from what I knew was happening out there and other people's research. I based it on a lot of people's research. There's lots of things you can go back into, but those are the two books that I think this audience needs just because of what you all do. So for sure. George, you got another job. You can translate 2 more books.
Got that. I'm going to call the publisher right away.
All right.
No, they're asleep. They're asleep. Elaine, are you saying that you're an accidental master author? You just, by accident, you wrote 2 books.
Oh, an accidental. Yeah, maybe
by
so.
accident. You're contracted to write 1 book, and by accident, you wrote too much.
That's exactly.
What I'm saying is, I do see the power of focusing. Yep.
And that's how I write books, too. I just shut the rest of the world out for a couple of weeks and sit down and write. And you can get a lot done. It takes effort, and it takes people getting used to you doing that. People now say, when they get a message from me, they send me an email and I say, "Sorry, I'm not answering this email for 2 weeks." They say, "Oh yeah, she's writing a book." But, everybody can't do that. But once people get used to you doing it, it's amazing. I always feel sorry for
Yes.
people who try to get up in the morning and write write for 1 hour on their book, and then they go off to work, and then they come back, and the next day they work. Because you spend, of that hour, you spend 15 minutes figuring out where you left off. Then you get to write for a half an hour, and then you have to close down. It takes you 15 minutes to say, well, where do I want to end? So you really get very little writing done. Anyway, that's just my theory.
Well, thank you for letting us know. That's really something I need to do. I believe all of our viewers in front of the computer, we do need to focus. We will achieve way more than we expected. So don't multitask. Don't multitask. Anyway, I want to switch a topic that I know that you have been doing some research on Carol Dweck's growth mindset, and Carol Dweck's growth mindset and the fixed mindset, and those are very important to our learning and development professionals. So, what I want to ask you, what is growth mindset, and why are they important to our viewers?
Yeah. So Carol Dweck has done a lot of research on this, and there's a lot of things that you can read about it. But I think that the most important aspect that we all need to recognize is that we can do and learn and be anything we want to be as long as we believe in ourselves. And I think this is something that I have discovered. Well, I discovered it about myself very early on. I was never shy about thinking that I couldn't do something or that I couldn't learn something. And so I've always just, taken that risk and done what I think I can do. But Carol Dweck actually did the research that proves it, that positive thinking, if you believe you can do something, then you can do that. Now, I think that it's important for our profession for two reasons. Number one, we have to believe in ourselves, and we have to be able to be the models to do this. We need to have a growth mindset ourselves. And then, but the more important part is that we have to instill that same growth mindset in all of our learners. We have to help them understand that, no, you're not stupid, you're not dumb, you're not slow, whatever awful words have been attached to people in the past, those aren't true. Anybody can learn anything as long as they really want to and they believe in themselves. There's Henry Ford said, if you believe you can or you believe you can't, you'll be right. And so that really is Carol Dweck's message in one sentence. If you believe that you can't learn that, you can't do it, you're going to prove yourself right. If you believe you can do it and you can learn that, you're going to prove yourself right. So you will be right. This thing that we have in our heads, we call it a brain. It's not smart at all. It only believes and understands what we put in it. And it can be used for positive thoughts and it can be used for negative thoughts. I'd like to believe that we as a profession, we're lifelong learners. We invented that term. And so we should be modeling that all the time, both the lifelong learner as well as the fact that anybody can learn. So yeah, Carol Dweck, she's been noted in all of my most recent books because she's getting the attention because she's done the research and that's good. That is finally coming to the forefront. Absolutely.
Thank you. The growth mindset is so important than the fixed one because we have to take a positive spin or take a positive view on development instead of looking back or holding on what you already have, but really expect for the future and getting ready. A couple of times earlier you mentioned we're in the VUCA era. VUCA. Yeah. It's so important to be flexible, to be agile, to adapt and adopt, and be ready for change at any time.
Absolutely.
We're getting closer to our 1 hour, but I do want to ask you, you have, because of the pandemic, you also started to teach online, some online courses to teach people to how to become a consultant. Can you tell me something about that too?
Oh, sure. You know, I love what I do. I'm a consultant. I consider myself a consultant. Training gave me that background, but I am constantly asked for help me become a consultant. Help me know how to do it. And let me take you to lunch and pick your brain and you know, all of those kinds of things. So Haleli Azulai and I wrote an online course called Building Your Successful Consulting Business. And it's for people who are thinking about starting their own consulting business, but you know, aren't sure about where to start. It's for people who are sort of digging in. How do I make this work? How can I be a consultant and still make the same amount of money that I'm making at my day job? So, you know, a lot of people get really excited and are thinking about striking out on their own. We're calling that the gig economy here in the United States. I'm not sure what you're calling it in China, but you know, we know that if, you know, by 2025, at least half the workforce will not be typical employees. They will be consultants, gig employees, contractors. They'll have some other title, but they'll be working for themselves. And so that means that they need to be entrepreneurs. And so what I've found is that there's lots of wonderful consultants out there. They have lots and lots of information. They really know their stuff. They're really smart, but they don't know how to run a business and they don't understand the entrepreneurial element. So therefore, they'll fail. And that's so sad. So this online class is 5 weeks long. We have, there's a lot of customized work. Every Thursday evening, we get together and you can ask any questions of anybody. It's an open mic sort of thing. And so we give lots of information about that. So if you're interested in more, I don't want to dwell on this, but if you are interested, if you're thinking about becoming a consultant, you can, there's a website. It's the website is Your Training Consulting Biz. So your YOUR training TRAING consulting and biz just BIZ.com. And you can go there, sign up. We are right now, we're not going to hold another class until the summer sometime. I think it'll probably be late June. And that in the meantime, though, I've been writing an article every week that helps you make decisions about your consulting practice or learn something new. So I'm pretty excited about all those articles. So we're sending things out, but yeah, go ahead.
Is that online course teaching people to become consultants originally in your plan from last year, or just because of the pandemic and then you suddenly came up with this course?
Well, we've got two. We've got the 5-week class that we started 2 years ago. And so we've been doing that regularly, but because of the pandemic, we decided to do something called the Consultant Quarantine Quick Start. And so it's a hustle that's going to take place. It's just going to cover 2 days, and it's next week. It'll be the 19th and 20th of May. So that's I'm not sure when this will be aired, but the 19th and 20th, and it's 2 days, 2 solid days. You'll come in, you'll learn something real fast and hard for an hour, then you'll go off and do your own personal work. Then you come back for another hour of really solid learning and then go off and do your own design for your own consulting practice, because you know, everybody wants to design their own. So that's where we are. Yeah.
You know, what you just hit really coincides with what we have been advocating. That in my classes, in my management improvement classes, I always tell them, always take a mindset of entrepreneurs or CEOs mindset, because if you are not planning to give out wages and you are always the wage receiver, and then you will be that forever. But if you prepare yourself day one to think like a CEO, and someday you will become CEO.
Yeah,
a soldier general thing, you know, the soldier general thing, you know. If you are not a soldier that wants to become a general, you're not a good soldier. Same thing.
That's right. That's right. And that's why I said, look around your offices and see who is it that you admire, who inspires you, that's the general that you're talking about, and
Right.
start modeling what they're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Just mimicking, shadowing, and then you'll find that you'll find a shortcut somehow, and then to your own success somehow.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely, absolutely. So Elaine, second to the last question, under the pandemic, well, it's still ongoing, and it's an unfortunate event worldwide. What advice would you give to the L&D professionals, especially in China?
Yeah. A couple of things. I think one of the things is you've got to take advantage of this time to increase your own knowledge and your own skills. So just learn, whatever you can. And some of the topics that I think that are going to come out of this that are really important, things like change, resiliency, agility, online learning, all of those things that you would imagine. But I think that there's also this whole idea that we have to become consultants to our leaders. So figure out how you're going to be able to do that, and then step up and learn how you can help your leaders and what you can do, what you can help them learn. They aren't, I think we sometimes step back and we think about our leaders as being all-knowing, and they always aren't. They have to give that image, but they always aren't. So they will welcome the information that you can share with them. There's a huge need for us to be able to consult with our leadership, both internal as well as external. So I think that's really important. I think, so one other thing I'd say during this pandemic is to lead the charge with a positive mindset. I mentioned that before. I think that's just so important. Just do what you need to do and believe that things are going to be better, because they are. They always get better, right? No matter what we have had to work on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I know that I have another gazillions of questions to ask you, Elaine, but we get near to the hour, and I don't want to hold you for too long. But last question, but not least, you're very successful in your career in the L&D, and you're considered one of the gurus, and we always look up. We all look up to. But looking back to your own career, if you had a chance to do it all over again, what would you have done it differently?
That's a difficult question, because I guess my first answer was the short answer would be I would have started earlier. I would have believed in myself earlier. I would have started doing what I really love earlier. That's the short answer. Unfortunately, I'm not so sure that the universe would have taken me to the same place if I had started earlier. Because if I had started earlier, I would have become an actuary, and I would be crunching numbers in some insurance company or for some federal agency, and I probably wouldn't be happy. My career I've always called myself the detour queen of the world. And so along the way, I have a goal in mind, but if something looks really good that I should learn off to the side, I'll go after that and I'll learn it. And that's what's given me this really broad understanding of people and broad understanding of organizations. And that is what I believe has made me a good trainer, a good talent development leader. I think that it's all of those experiences that I've had along the way. So although my short answer was I would have started sooner, if I had started sooner, I don't think I would be here talking to you, George, or to all of your wonderful listeners. I think that I would be crunching numbers in some insurance company and just wishing that I wasn't there and wanting to be out on the ocean or someplace. But that's what I think. The universe really does take care of you. You have to trust it too.
You're right. They're always called a lot of our occasion under different occasions. They're really serendipitous, and serendipitous, and it's fortune everything. Like the old song saying, "Everything written on the stars," and
Yep.
But somehow I never expected myself to be in this field. I was thinking, if I started, I probably will be a singer somewhere. A
singer, a singer. George, I didn't know you sang. Wow.
Yeah, I do. In my previous life, I do.
Well, I think if you ask, did you say we have thousands of people listening to us right now? I would bet that if you asked everybody to raise their hand who thought they were going to be a trainer when they were a child, nobody would answer nobody would raise their hand.
Nobody will do it.
Nope, that's exactly right. Nobody. And I came in the back door too. I mean, I honestly went back to school to finish my actuarial science degree, and then I stumbled on this thing called training, and I thought, how exciting is that? And I just, that was one of the first detours I took. So. Yep.
What year was that specifically? What can you recall? What year was that you accidentally came into training?
It would have been in 1980. Oh, now you know how I am an old one, aren't I? Wow. I think I have wisdom though. 1980. Yep.
It's all about numbers. So
yep.
Yeah, 1980. Yeah. A lot of our viewers, I think, they're just bored.
Yeah, they are. They could all be my kids, probably.
Yeah, the other day on May 13th, we paired up Roger Kaufman with the TCL VP. TCL is a global company. They produce wide appliances, TV set, digital products, and they're big. They're humongous. They're like $20 billion US dollar company in China, and the VP. And her turn, and she started like, Dr. Kaufman, I'm so honored to be with you, to converse with you. And when you were the ISBI president in year 1963, I was just born.
Oh my gosh! Well, I want to remind your audience that I spoke in 2015 at your Training Magazine conference. Right. That was a wonderful experience for me. Met so many friends out of that. Yes, it was. That's right. So that was great. So I had a good time, met a lot of good friends, and that's right. It was good.
And you had the workshop in the room next to me, 2 hours. Maya and Hoy's room, we were delivering the performance improvement workshop, and you were next door delivering the leadership workshop there.
That's right. I hope we didn't make too much noise, did we, George?
Well, you did. Oh, my lips are burned. No, you were fine. Was pretty good insulated and a very good hotel. The Greater China Sheraton Hotel. It's a very good facility there. But at that time, I remember that year you were the keynote speaker at the China Training Magazine annual conference, and we had a stand there, and you came and visited us, and also year after that, I also visited Shanghai and visited my home, and you came over. So the last question: are you willing to come over to China again after the pandemic?
After the pandemic, absolutely. I can't wait to get back. The Chinese people are some of the most wonderfully appreciative people I've ever met in my life. So I'm ready.
Here you go. So we will make chance we'll expect to see you over here.
All right. Thank you very, very much. This has been just a lot of fun, George, and it's been a real honor to have been selected to present with you and for your people. Thank you.
Likewise, Elaine, thank you so much for supporting us, and thank you so much for giving us all those good words and good advices and good suggestions and guidance to all of our young learning development professionals in China. Thank you.
Thank you.